Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. As always, Sean Tasse, joined with esteemed colleague and mortgage broker extraordinaire, Kyle Miller. Kyle, good morning. Happy Friday to you. How is your world?
World's busy, man. It's happy Friday to you too, though. But yeah, Fridays in our business is a big day. Everything happens. People offer on Fridays. A ton of people close on Fridays, which, even though I suggest you don't do that if you can avoid it. So yeah, we're always watching emails on the phone on Fridays for sure.
We like to call them firm up Fridays.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got to firm up. It's always on a Friday, never on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know why, but whatever. It's no, man, it's good. It's yeah, and then it's like, for whatever reason, you're always waiting until like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock to get the answer back and then to get the paperwork done. So it's that's Fridays for you, man. Yeah, so we figured we'd take a little bit of time today and talk about, there's a lot of buzz going around in the news right now saying, buyer sentiment is at an all-time low. Buyers are saying, hey, look, I'm going to wait. I don't think it's the right time to buy, yada, yada, yada. We want to unpack that, talk about pros and cons. But before we get into it, as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone you think might be interested in the sort of stuff that we're talking about here today. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks so much. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thanks for the eardrop. And if you'd like to schedule an appointment directly with Kyle or myself, you can do so in the Calendly link below. So now all of that is taken care of. I read an article, or I don't know if I read the whole article or just looked at the headline, but it said essentially, buyer sentiment is the lowest that it's been in the last, 10 plus years. And last year at around this time, it was about the same conversation, right? Buyer sentiment being as low as it possibly was. And then there was, I guess, a news article that we were talking about, or on the news, they said, hey, 67% of Canadians who, were considering buying are now thinking about waiting to buy a piece of property. So a lot of uncertainty in the market, a lot of hesitation from potential buyers. Everybody seems to think that we're not at the bottom yet. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely the buyers are hanging on the outside, right? Like, they're on the outside looking and watching and trying to wait and see what's going to happen. And it's I get it. I really do, right? Like, I don't have enough fingers to list all of the different uncertainties in the world right now. So I get that. And even talking to agents, that I'm network with and stuff, they're seeing it too. Like, the houses were moving pretty quick, literally, until like a couple weeks ago. And what's interesting is, talking to one of them the other day, they were telling me about them being on like a Facebook group with a bunch of agents, and everybody was talking about their open houses and how busy the open houses still are.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's crickets. Like, the offers are not coming in. People are waiting longer, right? Houses are sitting longer. So it's yeah, like, it's definitely sitting on the sidelines and waiting for something. I just don't know that something is coming, or when it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's the question is, what's the holdup, and especially, I think the longer buyers hold out, the more concerned sellers get, right? And if they have to sell, maybe there's an opportunity, right? So I think, if we talk about pros and cons of waiting, right? I mean, one of the pros is, hey, if the market goes down in price and I wait, then I will buy my house for a lower price, right? That's
Yeah.
a pro, and I think that's where a lot of people are leaning, right? So
And I think too, it's a thing of, again, and I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. And I feel, I want to say, in a position like, I don't want to say I feel, because that just contradicts what I was saying. But when we're in a situation like this, I think the data, the data is proves the data is what you need. So someone who's sitting there saying, I'll wait till the prices drop. Okay. How much? How much are they gonna, how much do you want them to drop before you jump in? Right. And if you're doing that, and I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm saying is, have you done the math? If the prices drop $50,000, right, on the houses here in Ottawa, right? 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever that is, do that math. And if interest rates do 1, 2, 3% at today's rate, and then I want you to add, anywhere from 0.25% to 0.5%. Let's go nuts and go 1%. And look at that and say, how much is that payment changing? Because what's going to be wild is that it's not going to change that much, right? What you're really hoping for is a price drop and an interest rate drop. And I don't think those two things are going to happen at the same time, at the same speed, or necessarily in that, or you might be the person who catches it at the right time, like the one person,
I had one guy last year who caught that. He bought a new build, and he locked in his old rate, and he closed a year later, and we put his house up for sale, and he sold it at the peak of the market, whatever it was, in March last year. So as the market was dropping, he was able to sell it, and I think he sold it in like the summertime, but he still got springtime pricing. And he also had his 1 point whatever percent. So I had one guy last year who the timing worked out perfectly. That was it, right? Out of whatever 60 or 70 people who we helped move last year. So it's ultra rare. And the data, like you said, the data points to an inverse relationship between real estate prices and interest rates, right? What that means is that as the rates go up, the prices go down. As the rates go down, the prices go up. And they match. And they match to the point where the payment, I mean, we did an exercise where when the market was at its peak and the interest rates started to go up last year, we were running math saying, okay, well, your monthly payment on your townhouse is $3,000 because it's $750,000, but the rates are 2%. And as the value of the townhouse came down to $625,000, the rates went up. Well, the rates went up to whatever they went up to. And every month that they did a rate change, we redid the math. And guess what the payment was on that same townhouse?
It basically felt the same. It never moved.
About $3,000. That's right. Exactly. And so seeing that exact harmony between those two data points leads me to believe that if the rates, because people are saying right now, like, oh, well, I don't want to buy because of uncertainty. And the main thing that a lot of people are saying now is, well, the rates are too high, right? So I can't afford the house anymore. Well, the rates are too high. The rates are too high. Well, the rates are too high. That means if the rates are too high, the house prices are too low, right? So by the same logic, so the rates are too high, the house prices are as low as they can be. And I took grade 10 economics, right? We did the thing about how to time the market. You're supposed to buy low.
Buy low
and sell high.
Yeah.
So right now, the market is low because the rates are high. Sure, your payment is what your payment is, but it would be the same if the price of the house went up and the rates came down. So don't worry about the payment. Worry about the one thing that you can be smart about, right? If the stock market goes down, you had a stock and it was a $20 stock, let's say, and it goes down, it becomes a $10 stock, buy more, right? That's where we're at with house prices right now.
Well, and I think too, like I don't disagree, but at the same point, you can't say don't worry about the payment. They have to worry about the payment. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I think again, it's the data to say how low do these prices have to get, and how high can the interest rates go for me to be comfortable, and does that make sense? Because quite honestly, it probably doesn't. Right. It probably doesn't. So you're just basically telling yourself, I'm not buying. And if that's your choice, that's okay. don't buy. Like, there's nothing wrong with not owning a home, right? Like, it's ingrained in us as Canadians, but same point, there is a shift happening because of just the general sentiment out there. Um, but it's there's more coming down. There's more storm on the way,
Hmm.
and that's the interesting thing. That they just had our national mortgage broker conference this past Sunday, Monday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but you were able to get the information that was there. And one of the stats that came out was that 2025 and 2026, roughly 57% of mortgages in Canada come due because there was a ton of transactions in 2020 and 2021, right? And there's your 5 years.
Well,
And some of those are variable, which are a thing, but a lot of those are fixed.
right.
And 2024 into 2025 and 2026 is the anticipated, because I say my crystal ball is foggy, but that's the anticipated time we're going to see rates come down, what would be considered significantly, potentially. So, we're in the sixes now. Maybe they start with a 4. If all hell breaks loose and World War IV starts by then,
3.
then no, I think we're going to be done that when we're starting the next one. then it'll be, then we're going to, maybe they're under 4.5. That's all that's going to do. All that's going to do is have everybody on the sidelines go, because they're all thinking the same thing. So that's the next thing coming. Now, if you've beaten that rush to the people, you probably have a better opportunity, I would think.
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to be wild to watch that happen.
What we saw earlier this year is at the end of 2022, we had a low point, and the low point matched about the average price that we were seeing in 2021, right? So at the end of 2022, we had a low point, and then we had 2 months in a row where we didn't get a note from the Bank of Canada saying, hey, we're gonna increase our rates. 2 months in a row during springtime, and that brought our average price. We were at 8 in March. It went down to 6 in at the end of December. It brought our average price back up to 7 by the time springtime rolled around, because buyer sentiment is tied so greatly to the interest rates, right? They didn't even drop the rate. They just held it steady, and buyers were like, oh, good, finally, go.
And that's it's interesting you say that. And I was just trying to not lose that thought. Sorry, but I was talking to another broker buddy of mine, and he made a super great point. Because I watch it too, but he watches this stuff super intently, just like the bonds and the market and that stuff. And he was saying that it's the stability.
Yeah.
So when we see stability is when everybody, and I mean that as investors and buyers in the stock market, everybody chills out. And when they chill out, that's when we start to see rates kind of start to trickle down. So it kind of correlates exactly what you just said. When the Bank of Canada chilled out and just let everything settle down, right? Buyers jump back into the market because they felt they felt literally that word, stability. And that's the thing. So when the Bank of Canada says, a couple meetings, and I honestly think it's probably going to take us till the Q1 of 2024, right? See January, February, right? Because if they do anything next week, again, that's going to ruffle feathers. Then we're going to have, I think we skip till December for the next announcement after that. So when they start doing 1, 2, 3 meetings and not change anything, that stability happens. That's the point where we start to see potentially some rate drops, and then the people are going to start jumping back in, right? And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. What I'm saying is you have to watch. If you're people on the outside, you have to watch that, because that's when you're going to start seeing the competition. You're going to start seeing some price increases, and people that just want to buy are going to pull the trigger quicker than people who are thinking about it.
It's all lining up for a spring 2024 frenzy. So the best time to buy, if you're a buyer and you're actively looking for a property, the best suggestion is beat the rush. Get into something before that frenzy happens, right?
And comment on one thing too, because I know people think like this. I think like this, but I also feel I think differently because I'm in this all the time. Is there's always people pumping bad news about losing money and how the price came down and this person lost all this money. That you have the mentality has to. I think the mentality in Canada overall has to change. Like, is a house an investment? It can be. Yes, it can be. The right timing, the right price, the right property can 100% be an investment. But if we're talking about your personal residence, if you have a place to live and it's yours, like, then as the equity position moves up and down, guess what? You still have a place to live. If you buy your house for, doesn't matter, 600 grand, you put your 5 or 10% down, whatever the minimum is on that, and then you start paying down the mortgage, right? You someday owe the bank 550, and the market says, well, the place is only worth 530. The bank doesn't sit there and look at that and have a little chart that says, Jeff's house is 530, he's underwater, call him, and let's sell it, call him. They don't do that, right? They're not in the business of taking back houses. It's part of the business. That's not their modus operandi. Like, they don't just want to do that. You keep paying, right? You keep paying and let it rebound and come back. That's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And it's just a moment in time. It's the people who are trying to invest and flip and make equity and like do all this stuff. And in the short term, you get hosed. Long term, it's okay. That can fluctuate. That can go up and down. You can be underwater and still come back up if you're going long term.
Yeah, it's the same with the stock market, right? It's only a problem if your stocks are low. It's only a problem if you have to sell, if it's time to sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sell, you're not moving. Hey, doesn't matter what's happening in the market. So anyways, we'll take a quick break here. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think might be interested. Book an appointment directly with Kyle or myself in the Calendar link below, and we'll jump right back into it in the second half. Peace.
This episode of the Real Collective podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. Kyle and I really love seeing your face, and I hope that you love seeing ours. Spoiler alert, we don't actually see your face. We'd love to, and feel free, as always, to reach out, schedule an appointment with us. We can do it by Zoom or in person. The Calendar links are below. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thanks so much. And as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with somebody who you think might be interested in this topic, which is a topic of, should you buy now or should you wait? And, you know, my philosophy always is, there's a book that's called Zag. And so when everybody's going in one direction, you go in the opposite direction, right? Don't go with the masses. Don't go with the sheeple. Don't go with, that's maybe a political term, too politicized right now. All I'm saying is
that conversation goes two ways real quick.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not trying to go in either of those ways. What I'm trying to say, whenever someone is telling you, hey, you know what, everybody's doing this thing because they think this is the right thing to do, maybe there's, in the other direction, opportunity. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. Like, if the conversation, the pendulum for the rate conversation, for example, right, has gone from here to there and back again. You know, when we talk to fixed versus variable at this point, you know, It's the variable rate mortgages are coming back into the conversation. If you have the bandwidth to manage it, then it's not a bad play, because again, in the right variable rate mortgage, I should call it an adjustable rate mortgage, when the Bank of Canada eventually says, okay, that's enough, and starts to bring the prime rate, the overnight rate down, the first people that are going to feel that are people on variable rate mortgages, because their discounts are going to be directly tied to that, and their payments will actually go down. And if you're in a fixed, you're fixed. Your rate's going nowhere. Oh, Kyle, but I could jump out and refinance. You could, but as rates go down, penalties go up. So, and right now, variable versus fixed, the difference isn't that big.
And
so,
and this is what people want to know, right? People want to know what's in the future, what's coming down the pipe. And I mean, we can tell you what we think, but you can't ever give, with certainty, hey, here's probably what's going to happen. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not. I mean, every year I do a prediction of like how many houses are going to sell, what the average price is. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. I've been doing it since 2017. And sometimes I'm like bang on, sometimes not. But that's what everybody wants to know, is what's going to happen, right? How long do I wait for until I do it? My thought, this is, end of October 2023. My thought is that if you want to be smart about buying a house in the next 6 months, get it done before the end of January. Right? That's my thought. Because the spring market seems to start sooner and sooner every year. A couple of years ago, like during COVID, we saw it start like in December, which was not expected. Like in 2021, December, it was just like, oh, okay, we are going. And it kept going until March 2022. And then it stopped, then it hit its peak in March, and then it started to slowly come down in April. The thing is, a lot of times we see the changes happening before the market realizes what's happening. So as it's changing, you've got an opportunity, if you're working with someone like Kyle or with someone like me, because we're watching all of this stuff like really deeply, we can say, hey, look, the market shifted. You might be dealing on our side with someone who knows what they're doing, but on the other side, you might not be dealing with someone who knows what's going on. So here's an opportunity as the market crests or shifts to still go in and make that play, right? But the sooner you do it, the better off you're going to be. Right now, the conversation we're having with sellers is, hey, look, the market's slowed down. You want to get ahead of it, which means your price needs to be better than the last one that just sold. And by better, I don't mean higher. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the conversation. So getting ahead of the market is the most important thing that you can do right now.
And from the finance side of things, I get ridiculed, but I definitely have some brokers that are like, dude, you're putting too much not effort, but you'd really talk about that stuff, because I spend a lot of time in my initial lead up with clients to go over literally how this stuff works. But particularly, I spend not a lot of time, but a very important part of my presentation or my conversation with them is around the stress test and how that works and how that affects you. And people are like, yeah, I would stress test, like whatever. I'm like, no, you have to understand, like, especially if you're getting ready now, right? You're getting ready now, you're going to get a rate hold at today's rates, 120 days. So if you haven't bought in 120 days, that's okay. But as we get closer to that end, right, a lot of people just think, well, I've already been pre-approved, it's all the same. It's not the same, because if the interest rates on the fixed side have gone up, the stress test has gone up alongside it, which brings down your buying ability. So to understand that and know that there's a relationship there can add some urgency, a little bit of stress, but it also adds preparedness, because if the rate goes up but the prices come down, maybe that relationship is enough to make it be the same. Maybe it's not, right? So having that preparedness now, that is preparing for the market. Understanding how those fluctuations can affect you outside of your 120-day rate hold is super important, but it's something people skip all the time because it's not fun. Christ, that stuff's boring as terrible. But it's the understanding, man. You won't get left out in the cold if you take the 2 minutes to understand that and keep in contact. I think it's invaluable. No one's ever told me they hated it. I mean, they probably went, "Oh my god, it's boring," but never told me they hated it.
This just in: stress tests cause anxiety.
Yeah,
Right?
Across the board, doesn't matter what it's about. Just stress tests in general.
But yeah, right, like that VO2 max. Anyways, the take home piece that I heard and what you're talking about is there is an inverse relationship. Again, this is going back to what we said at the beginning, between what the rates are doing and what the stress test is and what you as a consumer can turn around and purchase. And then that has the effect on negatively impacting the house price because, hey, your stress test, the rates went up. Therefore, the stress test rate went up. So now instead of qualifying at 7.5, you have to qualify at 8. Well, if you have to qualify at 8, you can't buy as much house. Well, if you can't buy as much house, you can't go and pay $500,000 for that house anymore. You can only offer them 475 or whatever the number is. So there's absolutely an inverse relationship between what the rates are doing and what the house prices are doing. And that's further just prove the same point that I was making earlier, right? And so
it's exactly exactly. Yep.
So it's like, hey, if once the rates hit their absolute peak, whatever that is, whenever it happens, whenever that top number is, within a month or two of that, the house prices will hit their absolute trough. So as soon as that happens, that's when it's time to buy. Oh, but my payments are going to be higher. Your payments are going to be the same. If you buy them when the rates are as high as they are and the house price is as low as it is, and then that changes, your monthly payment's still going to be the same. But what you owe on that property in 5 years, if you buy when the rate is if the prices are as low as they are, then you will owe less on your property in 5 years when it's time to renegotiate. At that point, the rates will likely be lower. Therefore, you will see a lower payment than your cohort who bought, let's say, for example, a year later when the rates were a little bit down, but the prices were a little bit up.
And excuse me, I'll agree I'll agree with everything. I accept the fact, and this is just keeps proving itself to be correct, that it's not that the rates will just be lower and therefore your payment will just be lower, right? And this is the data thing. That's the thought, and you're not wrong. It's just this is where we think. If the rates go down and I owe less, then I'm just going to pay less.
Right.
And the other thing that happens with that though is your amortization is also shrunk. So there's a very good chance your payment won't go down as a point of order, I guess. So, but there's opportunity to have it go down if you re-amortize and refinance and stuff. I just get very granular on that because the thought process of people saying like, oh, well, it's just going to because the rate's lower. No, the time you owe is also less.
Right.
The time you owe is less, which means your payment actually, you have less time to pay it back. Therefore, your payment goes up.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it will go up, right?
Yeah, but, that makes sense. I guess my point is you get the chance to come sit at the table 5 years later and say, hey, here's what I owe on my house. I bought it for $5, I owe $450. Hey, here's what I owe on my house. I bought it for $5, I owe $430. In 5 years' time, how do you want to show up to that table? And however you splice, however you cut it, however you whatever, what do you want to show up to the table and sit down at? The other point that I wanted to make just before we jump off is you said that in 2025 and 2026, 27% of the mortgages are coming due. 57.
57.
All right. I was okay, good. Then that makes more sense. Because I was like, well, wouldn't it be the case that most mortgages are 5 years, and wouldn't it be the case that over a 2-year period, on average, most houses will, or it'll be about 20% of mortgages that come due, but that sounds like it's 30% of mortgages that come due in each year. So yeah, a lot more transactions happened. You're right. Okay, I get it. I thought it was 27. I was like, that doesn't seem right. But
no, a portion of that 57 will be the 20 some odd percent of people that took variables. So that'll be an interesting subset of that to see what happens there. because that's when, and again, I think that's a lot more in the bigger, in the absolutely huge markets, the Montreal's, Toronto's, Vancouver's. That's where we're going to see some stuff and be like, whoa, because at that point, then it's okay. I was literally talking to a guy here in Ottawa. He was on a standard variable mortgage. His amortization is 99 years right now because the payment that he was on a static payment. So he's been paying the same amount and there's no way he's paying enough. Right. And he knows that too. He's just like, I haven't looked at how to fix it. And that'll be a new challenge for people and us. But again, if prices, I still think there's two major events. There's only, in my opinion, two major events that are going to cause house prices to drop so low that interest rates aren't going to make a mad difference.
Right.
And that's if there's a big meeting of everybody that wants to buy, and they can collectively say, we're just not gonna buy. We're just gonna wait and wait and wait and wait. Don't, and like what was that movie? Braveheart. Hold, like they're holding the line. Hold. Right? If they can do that for the next 2 or 3 years and have nobody jump, then we're gonna see the house prices tumble.
Sure.
Or if the government can magically sprinkle their fairy dust, like they always say they can, and build millions of homes a year, which they can't do, right? Every plan they put out is 5-10 years. Yeah. And I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying they can't do it now.
Yeah.
So that's where those prices are going to hold. The demand is still there. People in our area, at least, I'm not going to say Toronto, our area, can afford to still go out and buy. I'm still doing purchases.
I'll tell you, stop reading national news and applying it to Ottawa. How about that? Hey, if you read national news about what's happening in real estate, it's driven by Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. It doesn't necessarily apply here. The sky does not fall. We're in a bit of we're insular as a city here in Ottawa. And so too is Washington, D.C., right? Because of that federal employment, and secondarily because of having, Silicon Valley North, right? We are lucky in that regard. So don't read national news and apply it to Ottawa real estate prices. Listen to the podcast and get all of your Ottawa news here.
And you know what? That is true. That is true. Stay as local as you possibly can. Between this podcast, there's multiple different ones out there, right? My boss is on the radio every week. I know it's AM, but whatever, right? Where they talk about this, like that is Ottawa based, and you'll get more accurate information, I think, there, because we literally, we see it, right? This is happening on your street right now, right? It's not down on Jane and Finch or whatever.
No shootings. All right. So
also that's the intersection I picked.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. So as always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody who you think might value this hyper local information. And as always, you can schedule an appointment with Kyle or I directly below in the Calendly links. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for your ears today. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.